let's give this punk kid, a chance. He can't do any worse. It was a horrible store. It was actually one of the worst stores in the chain. And so they said, we got a store for you.
Tulsa Talks is the podcast that is inspiring people to have everyday meaningful conversations to gain perspective and help the world.
Welcome to Tulsa Talks, your community podcast. Arthur Greeno owns 2 Chick-fil-A's and is a philanthropist. Today's conversation is about how Arthur was developed from college through the time that he runs the Chick-fil-A's, and as well how he gives back. Arthur, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
So let's start their Arthur Greeno adventure in college when you joined the Chick-fil-A team, please.
Sure.
What caused you to join Chick-fil-A?
Well, I needed a job. It's actually pretty simple. I actually worked at McDonald's.
Okay.
73rd Memorial. I worked at McDonald's. It's not a McDonald's anymore. It's a weed shop. It's been gone.
A lot of those in town.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, there is. So I actually I wanted to change some things up a little bit while I was going to college, and a friend of mine called and said, "Hey, there's a Chick-fil-A hiring," and I had Chick-fil-A once in my life. I got a free sandwich card, and I had Chick-fil-A, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, I like Chick-fil-A." And so while I was on break at McDonald's, I called that Chick-fil-A at Woodland Hills Mall, and the guy said, "Yeah, come on down. Come down, fill out an application." So I did, and I got hired on.
In college and working fast food was not below you.
Absolutely not. No, not at all. It was a job, and I needed a job. So
So what was your major in college?
Well, my major was I was an artist, of all things. Yeah.
You are very artistic. If anybody knows Arthur and his interesting ways on Facebook and how he has fun in the community, I could imagine you being an art major.
Yeah. Yeah, so I was an art major and needed a job, and Chick-fil-A was kind of an avenue along there, and so jumped in. This was 1988. Jumped in to work with Chick-fil-A, and just started going at it. So Chick-fil-A was at that time really one of 4 jobs. I had 4 different jobs, and they all met different needs of mine while I was in college. But Chick-fil-A was, I was working easily 40 hours a week there.
So this was your 4th job consecutive throughout, that you had went from one job to the next and you were being developed?
Oh, no, I had 4 jobs all at one time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was putting myself through college. And so my family didn't come from money at all. And in order for me to, afford it, I needed to be, that's you did whatever it needed to do. And that was it.
A lot of people don't do whatever it takes.
It's true.
And they don't excel in life, but you are an inspiration to take that on.
Thank you.
And apparently that was instilled in you somehow from an early age, that people that achieve things do what it takes to achieve them.
Yeah. Yeah, it will.
So how did you get into owning that first Chick-fil-A?
Well, so I worked for Chick-fil-A from basically 98 through 92. And I fell in love with the company, loved the culture. And, as I stepped into leadership roles with Chick-fil-A, being a team leader and assistant manager, I was like, this is a company that I want to, be involved with. I didn't know I had no business classes at all. Had no idea what I was getting into, but I knew how to ask people. And so I started visiting with other owners around the area and say, hey, what does it take if I wanted to do this?
What did it take?
Well, it took leadership. That's one of the biggest things is there's a list that Chick-fil-A has, and one of them is, can you lead? That's the simple version.
Could you lead yourself? And I think the answer was yes, because you could lead yourself into college and working 40 hours a week.
That's true. Yeah.
So you could lead yourself first.
Yep. And the funny thing is I was kind of embarrassed about, having to work so many jobs. I didn't, at first I didn't share that with them because I didn't know that they were looking at that. They also wanted to see if, it wasn't about, do I have a college education necessarily, but I was young. I was 22 years old. They wanted to see that I would set a goal and achieve it.
Yeah.
And so I set a goal to finish college, and and they saw that I was willing to do whatever it took to make that happen.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people say that they like to hire college graduates because it has shown that somebody or that individual can achieve a goal.
That's right.
Nothing else.
Agreed.
They might not know anything about doing what that company needs them to do, but they can set and achieve a goal, which is a
Yep.
big thing.
Well, and really, to be honest, that's probably all I knew. It was let's just keep trekking forward and get it done. I didn't have a lot of skills, and well, this is before computers. You got to remember, this is back in the day.
Yeah.
And
92, you say?
yeah, it was 92. So it was back, before computers were out. In fact, I remember Chick-fil-A, being hesitant because they weren't sure that computers were going to last.
Oh,
So,
wow.
it's a whole different ballgame nowadays.
Okay. But you were smart enough to know that you didn't know, and you found mentors in the area that did know.
That's correct. I went around and started asking a lot of people, "Hey, what do I need to know?" They kind of gave me some direction.
What was their response to you? In my life, I've found that people that know something want to share if somebody wants to receive, and they want to be able to help that person because it makes them feel good about that person taking that up and moving forward with the information so that they get to participate in my life. What have you found? What did you find?
exactly the same. It's one of those that I can actually go through my life and look at different stages that I went to mentors and said, "Hey, I'm struggling with this. What's your thoughts on it?"
Mhm.
And I mean, at least 3 or 4 different times in my life that's happened. And it's helped me progress to the next level. And a lot of it's just stuff you had no clue about.
Right.
Stuff that they didn't necessarily teach you in school,
Yeah.
or you always wonder about it.
And how complicated were those answers most of the time? Most of the time, I've found that it's like, okay, duh, yeah, that's the way you step into that.
That's correct. And a lot of times I was the one talking myself out of it. I was like, I think I should do this, but I was like, I'm not going to do that. I don't know if that's right or not. But then when I talk to people and they kind of showed me, no, this is, yes, you're right. That is the right thought process. It's like, oh, it almost gave me permission to
Right.
move forward with
Yeah.
what my gut was saying anyway.
Right. With that affirmation.
Yeah. And so now with Chick-fil-A, I'll be honest, I had no idea. In fact, I was an art major, and I read books because they told us to read books. I didn't actually think there was value in the books. And
Mm.
so when I had heard that the hot book at that point for Chick-fil-A was 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Yeah, I've read it.
And so now I've read it too, but at the time I hadn't read it, so I went and bought it and started reading it. So when Chick-fil-A asked, "Hey, what are you, how are you developing?" I was like, "Oh, I'm reading 7 Habits of Highly Effective People." I think at that point I was done with 2 habits, because I'm still going to school and doing other things. But they were, I think, impressed that I was reading and developing, and but that helped me learn, oh, there is value in these books, not just graphic novels and fun books, but more like there's educational,
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, those are the books that have always been my focus as far as the abstract thought, the adventure books, the romance novels, all of that. That's not my thing. I've always been geared to very directional books,
Yep.
Intentionally personal development books, all the way through. Maybe when I was bodybuilding, I would read those
Yeah.
to get encouraged. Maybe when I was going into the contracting realm, I would read those. And that's the way that I've self-grown.
Right.
But the others are fun as well.
They are, and they all have a role. I'm kind of the same way. I'll read those to kind of notch up a little bit, but I also I enjoy other books. But there's certain ones like you're not gonna find me reading a detective novel. There's too much thinking in those. I am not interested in that. I got enough problems I got to solve in life.
Right. Yeah. Well, some people live their lives vicariously through books. Others live their life through an adventure like you're doing.
Yeah.
You have that need met of the deep thought process in overcoming and seeing around corners in everyday life.
Yeah, that is true. I certainly get my share of that. So,
So now you're 22 years old and you're looking into getting a Chick-fil-A?
yep. And so they said after I went through the process, they said we have a store for you, and that store is Eastland Mall, Oklahoma. And so very small store at in the mall here in Tulsa.
Yeah.
And they basically, I got to wonder if they were thinking, hey, let's give this punk kid, a chance. He can't do any worse. It was a horrible store. It was actually one of the worst stores in the chain. And
Mhm.
so they said, we got a store for you. And so I looked at it and said, you know what? If I take the store and I do a good job, then I can grow with the company. And at the time I was thinking, oh, this company is really small, not a big deal, and some people may say that as well. But the reality was what I didn't know was the very first seminar I got to go to with Chick-fil-A that year, they were celebrating 400 stores. So they were already, even though it was a small store compared to now, they were at 400 stores.
How many stores do they have now?
Over 30, I think over 3,500-ish.
Okay, so 92 to 25, 33 years,
Yeah,
and they have went from 400 to 3,500,
yeah,
9x.
yeah.
That's
Yep.
strong. That's strong growth.
So, yeah, so it's
And from what I understand, it's not just anybody that they throw a Chick-fil-A to. It takes something inside that person to show themselves before the Chick-fil-A will open another store for that person.
yeah, the way the way I've heard it said is that it's easier to get in the CIA than it is Chick-fil-A. Yeah, and so it's one of those that my wife and I even had this conversation recently. Is that I wonder if I was 22 years old nowadays if I would be accepted, because Chick-fil-A is a whole different ballgame nowadays than it used to be. I mean, at that time that store did $286,000, so it was second from worst store in the chain, and so I was there. I ran that store for about 4 years, developed that store up till we were doing close to 700,000. Then a Tulsa Promenade store came available.
So you 3x in 4 years.
Yeah,
That's strong growth.
yeah. I worked hard, and we did a lot. I mean, as soon as they were throwing out ideas about deliveries and other things, I was out there. I didn't have anything to lose because it was so bad, at that store. And so we, I went to Promenade. I moved to Promenade, gave up my original store, and I ran Promenade for about 4 years. And kept developing that store, and finally they offered me Woodland Hills back, which was the very first store that I started at. So I took that store, and
So now you own the store that you originally worked.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
So you were flipping fries to running the place.
And I was back to flipping fries again.
Whatever it takes. Right?
That's exactly right. And so I ran that store for a number of years until the hard part was there was a lot of other Chick-fil-A's popping up, like freestanding stores. So now we're, at that time we're in the mall, and all the freestanding stores are popping up about an hour and a half away. There was one in Oklahoma City and one in Fort Smith, Arkansas, and
company awareness and awareness of the brand, did that help you?
at that time, no, it wasn't. People did not know Chick-fil-A.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
When it's coming up like this, it seems like it would help drive your sales. No?
It did a little bit. The biggest thing was, especially when you're at the mall, it was sampling. And so I mean, if you wanted to have a sales growth, you put somebody out at the lease line, give them samples of Chick-fil-A, and you would get people, would you like to try a sample of Chick-fil-A? And they'd be like, now what's a Chick-fil? That was a big thing. What's a Chick-fil? We would give. I mean, you could tell if the store's marketing based on how many pounds they sampled every month. Because again, it was a brand new product. And so and the freestanding stores, when freestanders really started growing is really when Chick-fil-A kind of took off. But for me, try to get a freestanding store here in town, I was talking to Chick-fil-A and they're like, we're not looking in Tulsa. We're not looking in Tulsa. And so I actually got tired of people asking me, hey, how come, they got Chick-fil-A locations in Atlanta and in Dallas and all these places, and you don't have one here in, Tulsa. And I was like, yeah, they're not looking right now. And so I really got tired of them asking. So I made business cards for a guy at the corporate office, the guy that was in charge of real estate. So I started handing them out and said, hey, give him a call, give him a call, ask him why.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's outside the box thinking.
It was. And he did call me on it. He called me and said, are you handing out my business cards? I was like, yeah, I am. And he said, how did you get my business cards? I said, well, I actually had them made. Because as far as I know, it wasn't illegal to make someone's business cards. I wasn't saying that I was him, but I was tired of answering that question. And so he said, well, can you stop? I said, tell you what, I'll stop giving these out after you come out to Tulsa and visit and we look at a freestanding store. And so he calls me one day and says, hey, I'm coming out to visit. I have a layover in Tulsa. Now, if you've ever been through Tulsa airport, you know there's no layovers in Tulsa. Okay.
Right. Yeah. This is final destination.
That's right. Yeah. End of the railroad tracks here.
Yeah.
But
yeah. So he didn't exactly tell the truth, but he told you that he was coming.
Yeah. So he came, we kind of talked about some areas, and so they built the store at 71st and Garnett.
So by your proactivity of you being the guy that made things happen in your life, following through with that to help people get what they want here in Tulsa, which was a freestanding Chick-fil-A, the first one in Tulsa, you gave business cards outside the box, completely abstract thinking from your artistic background, saying, make this happen for yourself. I'll give you the contact. And you drove the opportunity for Tulsa to receive its first freestanding Chick-fil-A.
Well, I'd like to say that I had a say in it. The reality was, Chick-fil-A may have been coming out anyway. It's hard to say, but, I certainly was involved.
You ruffled the feathers.
I did. That I did.
Ruffled the feathers of that chicken.
Yeah. So they came out. We built that store. I gave up my mall store, ran that store for a couple of years, and then realized, it's not that much different building running a freestanding store as a mall store. And my stores were about 1.4 miles apart. So I said, why don't I go ahead and ask for the mall location back? So in 2006, I was able to get, I was able to get a second store. So I had 2 stores since 2006. And so I've been kind of doing that ever since.
And it's somewhat of a rarity for a man to be honored to be able to run 2 stores.
It is. And at that time, it was more of a rarity. It happens more nowadays, but yet, it's really all about leadership. Just because someone can run 2 stores doesn't mean they should run 2 stores. And if your store is solely functioning because of you, then something's wrong. You have to be able to step back and really let your team be able to lead that store. And sometimes the hardest thing for a leader is letting your team fall on their face so they can learn from that, rather than you rescuing them all the time. They don't learn anything from that.
Yeah.
And so yes, I was graced with that, and so I've had 2 stores ever since then, and a bunch of other projects since then.
So with you having 2 stores, allowing people to fall on their face to a certain degree without imploding the business, and being there to help coach them back up and help them see their blind spots after they've went through that realization of having a blind spot by being able to fall a little bit, you've opened yourself up to be able to do something more with your life as they actually handle the day-to-day operations in the Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
And tell us a little bit about this next step that you made. So you were a college kid, went to work for Chick-fil-A, got to ownership, and you've developed yourself. Now you've developed your team. This has given you some, quote, free time for a person that's very passionately living, goal-oriented, driven, artistic fellow. What was your next outlet?
Well, the next thing is that what are we doing with this? I'm out there in the community doing different things here and there, but what do I want to be known for? What does that look like? And so that's when we started branching off and really, what can we do? What are the needs out in the community? And then we would tackle them one at a time. And over the years, we've done a number of different things. I'm sorry.
Okay. What was your first step?
Well, the first step is first of all, seeing what's out there as far as the need goes, and now one thing I learned a long time ago was, you kind of, for a long time, I would go out there and say, hey, I want to be part of a board. Okay. And, that's where people are really connecting with one another. And, when you look on TV and you look at what success looks like, you see all these board members, stuff like that. Well, what I learned is you need to be on the right board. Because I joined some boards and I realized I'm not passionate about this at all. And if I'm going to be spending my time doing it, I need to make sure I'm passionate about it. Otherwise, I get bored at the meetings. I'm not
You get
interested
bored
in
with the
going.
board?
I do. It happens, but I joined some boards, and it was one of those that I realized real quick, this is not where my passion is. And but what I learned was when I'm jumping into boards that I'm passionate about, I'm going to stick with it longer. I'm going to be more invested in it, and I can make a bigger difference.
Yeah. What was your first board that you were, if you can share, what was your first board that you were passionately connected with?
That I was passionate. I thought you were going to say the other one, the probably the very first one that I was really passionately connected with was I was on the board for the Little Lighthouse, and
Great place.
yeah, fantastic. It's a school for special needs kids,
Mm-hmm.
and it's free of charge. And so now the interesting thing about that board is you actually time out. And so I was on that board for a couple of years, and then my wife was on the board for a couple of years. But when we timed out, we said, okay, so what's next? We moved on to the next one, and I got involved with the Christmas parade, and so I've been on that board for a number of years. So we're in charge of making sure the Christmas parade happens every year.
Yeah.
And
That was a big battle a few years ago when they were taking Christmas out of the Christmas parade.
It was. And
Were you a part of that?
I was not part of the taking Christmas out of it.
No, I'm talking about supporting it, moving it across town, actually
Yeah.
having a lot more attendance at that one, even though it wasn't downtown, and getting the name reestablished and getting that parade back into Tulsa.
Yeah. So
Were you part of that at that time?
I was. Actually, one of the guys that was in charge of that called me up and said, "Hey, we're doing this parade. Can you help us out?" We kind of took it over, took it back over and moved it over. And then he said, "Hey, can you help me?" And I was like, "Sure, yeah, no problem." And I went out there and realized, oh my gosh, they need help. So me and Paul Ross over at American Waste, I remember him and I looking at each other, going, "I'll do it if you do it." And we both agreed. And so we've been doing it ever since then. And we've been able to make a lot of modifications. Like, for example, they were actually writing a book about the Christmas parade, and we found out that the Christmas parade was most successful when it was being done during the day. Well, when we took it over, it was being done at night. It was a nighttime parade.
Kind of cold sometimes. That time
it
of
was
year.
cold. It was cold, and it was dark, and you had to light up your car. And and all
had
the
to fight to
mhm.
get downtown.
Yep. And so we're sitting there in a meeting. I was like, why are we doing it at night? If the best attendance that's ever happened was during the daytime, let's move it back to the day. And
Yeah, simple little things.
yeah. And so we walked away from that meeting, and everyone's kind of like, oh my gosh, at first it was like, what? No, it's always been at night. But then as they started thinking about it and kind of marinating on it, we all started having kind of a separate conversation going, why don't we go ahead and move it back? Worst case scenario, we'll move it back to nights if we need to. But we moved it to the day, and all of a sudden our attendance skyrocketed. People's ability to be involved with it skyrocketed, and we were actually able to slowly make it, not that it ever wasn't a great parade, but it's certainly gone, a lot bigger than we've ever seen it before.
Wife and I went to it for the first time this year. We've lived in Tulsa since 2007, and we went to it for the first time this year because we heard about. My attention was brought to it through a Tulsa Christian businessman luncheon. Somebody was telling us about how it switched from downtown to over there by Tulsa Hills, and then back. He gave the keynote speech that day, and I went home and I told Rita. I said, "Rita, let's go to the Tulsa parade this year, Christmas parade," and we did, and it was a great time.
Yeah, it was a blast. In fact, this last year we were actually able to give away 10,000 toys to all the kids.
Wow.
And so somebody contacted me and said, I have some toys that we need to distribute. Do you have an avenue for that? I was like, yeah, absolutely, we have an avenue for that. So we set that up at the parade, and we were able to distribute 10,000 toys, and that was a chore. I mean, we felt it when we were done. But
you had your hands on it.
Oh yeah, I had to take my truck and a trailer to go pick up 10,000 toys. I mean, I can't tell you how many trips we were making, and then storing them, and then opening them, and then and then how do we distribute them all, throughout the parade so that we can give them out at different segments. And so it was a beast, but it was one of those that to see the joy on kids' faces, that they're at the parade and they get handed a doll or you
Yeah.
know, a toy
I
or
saw it.
yeah, it was
I saw it.
it was quite insane. If we do that again, which we will end up doing again, I don't know if we're going to do it this year or not, but we do have more toys set off to the side so that we can do it again.
Wow.
So we're ready for it.
So you've participated on these boards. You're active with the Christmas parade. You um, have been on other boards that you've
Mhm,
been help them see the simple changes that make big differences.
mhm.
And it's amazing how simple life changes in our own lives, our business lives, or in the community activist life that we live. Those little changes can have profound impact. You've told me something about you having a nonprofit.
Yeah, we a number of years ago we created a nonprofit called Tulsa Pop Kids, and
Tulsa what?
Tulsa Pop Kids, and so
Pop, P-O-P.
Tulsa Pop. Yep. The What we do is we help support literacy through pop culture and entertainment. So I'll break it down. Basically, we distribute graphic novels, which are basically like comic books. Okay, but they're the bigger versions. So a lot of people know what comic books are, but then the graphic novels, each comic book is actually a part of a novel.
Oh, wow.
So there's always a story for it. So if you read one comic, there may be you get to the end of it and you're going on to the next comic, then you're going to the next comic, and so there may be 30 comics, kind of all wrapped up. Well, what we do is we purchase these graphic novels and we distribute them here in Tulsa. So, for example, if like Woodland Hills Mall, they do a reading program. Well, we actually help them with a reading program over the summer. Then we take these graphic novels out, and we give them away free of charge. So when kids are out of school, they now get an opportunity to read and learn. So, and a lot of this came from the fact that when I was growing up, I had a lot of family struggles, and education wasn't very important in our family, um, and just because we're dealing with other problems. And so for me to read, I was reading comic books. That's what it was. And what a lot of people don't realize is comic books are actually written at a college level reading. And it actually makes a lot of sense when you think about it. There's not a one fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish comic, and then there's a Superman comic. They're all like written like Superman or Spider Man or whatever it may be, and so they're written at that college level reading. So if you can get kids reading these comic books, then they're reading at a higher level. And so we take these comics and we go to the projects and we go to the children's hospital and even at the Christmas parade. I think we gave out 5,000, at the parade while we were doing that, and so that's what our nonprofit does. But the reason I'm passionate about it is because that's how I learned, and that's what really connected me. So
Yeah.
so of course along that road, I get to use my creativity and build things like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, bookmobile that we have, or a Batmobile. We built a 1989 Batmobile, and believe it or not, this morning I had to go hook the Batmobile up and take it to the shop because the hydraulics weren't working right on it at the last parade. And so, which if you know me at all, you know that that's a normal thing for Arthur to be driving down the road with a Batmobile or a dragon or a dinosaur or something weird hooked up to his car. But those are things that I like to be involved in. So because of that, as I'm out there doing what I do in the community, I'm passionate about it. And so versus being on a board that you're sitting there, thinking, okay, when will this thing end? I got so many other. For me, it'd be like I have so much other fun things I could be doing, but now when I'm at these
How do you
boards, I get to do that.
how do you avoid being on the wrong board now that you've had some experience of finding which boards you do enjoy and which boards you don't? And how would you fit? I'm sure that somebody fits on those other boards or they wouldn't have them.
Absolutely. Yeah, and you are right. There are people that is their personality, or maybe they had a connection like I did. What I would say to people if they're asking, "Hey, I want to be on a board, but I don't know if it's the right fit." Well, first of all, if it sparks passion in you, then it's the right fit. Okay, if you are looking forward to going to those meetings, then it's probably a better fit than when you're kind of going, oh man, I got to make my schedule open for this,
Yeah.
and everyone has different things that get them excited. I mean, um, uh, when I was on some of these other boards, like some of them would raise money for, say, teachers. I liked it. It was good, but it wasn't exciting to me. That particular board, the things that it didn't make me get out of bed and go, hey, I look forward to going to that meeting today, because I want to see what we're going to do. So, but there was a lot of people that's what they did, and they loved it, and they still talk about it, and I'm still connected with them. But yet, I'm going to encourage you, if you want to be in something long term, look for what's going to excite you.
Yeah.
Whatever that looks like.
Yeah, we've had people on that had addiction problems in the past. We've had people on from broken homes. We've had people that have had struggles in homes. And you just said you had a struggle in home. You wanted to succeed. You thought you should learn. The way that you invested in yourself to be able to learn was find comic books or what'd you say? What kind of novels?
Graphic novels.
Graphic novels. And that's how you helped Arthur grow.
Yeah.
These other people that have attached themselves to these other issues that they've experienced, a lot of those people come back around and help those people where they were.
That's right.
Just like you.
Yeah.
It's amazing how God equips us going through things to be able to turn around and help people that might be going through those same things.
Yeah.
That we went through. And I call that equipped to love in our lane. And that's why we were doing this podcast, is to help people know what it takes from different perspectives to help people, and how we've all went through that enlightenment of this was not okay for me. I'm okay now. Let me help those people that have those similar experiences as I had get through that not being okay, so that they can help others as well.
I agree 100%.
Arthur, thank you for coming today.
It's my pleasure.
We are here to help you discover or develop your passions, how you can use them, and why you exist. How can we help you help others better?